In modern society, there is a general desire to organize. Some call organizing mobilization. Mobilization can be used for both good and evil. Organization is necessary in spiritual life. We must ask ourselves the question, in what way should we organize ourselves? Let us make a little observation in nature, what small seeds do, how they organize themselves. When a grain of wheat is sown, it immediately polarizes and begins to organize itself, to send roots down into the soil and others, branches, up into the air. In organizing itself, this seed wants to grab hold of the soil. Why? Because it can draw juices from there. The art is how to draw juices from the ground. Now, the question is about the other roots, the branches that go up, and they organize themselves, and they want to take from the air what they need. We are also all in two worlds at the same time, material and spiritual. We draw juices from the material world society. Our roots are in it, and our branches are in the spiritual world. Can we, as conscious beings, apply this great law of growth, sir? That is, understand the process of growth intelligently. Religion is a path for development in the physical world, for organizing society, and it began first with music, various games, people. The Bulgarian horo dates back to those times of primary organization. It is the physical side, preparation for a religious mood of the mind and for awakening consciousness. During this era, which began 700 years before Christ, consciousness and sensitivity have developed, and therefore people now feel greater suffering than then. And these painful states will intensify even more. It is a sign of the expansion of human consciousness. When you observe nature, especially when women are difficult, 2, 3, 4 months, some women go through such a state. Those in whom consciousness has not developed have it easy, but the highly developed, intelligent ones go through a very big crisis. And this crisis depends on the state of the child's soul, which enters the mother's world, gives rise to a temporary disharmony in it, until the mother manages to regulate the inclinations and desires of the child. Then it loses its consciousness and submits to the mother's will, because the mother takes the upper hand, power over the child. A child who worries its mother a lot until birth is not to be recommended. I bring this fact up to show you that many religious ideas are like these children. They will enter you, you will conceive, and some of them may cause you great pain. Deliverance does not lie in miscarrying. Doctors say that when a mother is in such a state that she is weak and will not bear the child, and they give her a medicine for miscarrying. Miscarriage is 10 times more dangerous than childbirth, for nature, which is rational, compensates for every woman. With each birth she is renewed, becomes more intelligent, and her character develops, while the one who miscarries loses heart and organic strength. This is also true with regard to ideas. If a certain idea, whatever it may be, divine or otherwise, enters your mind or your heart, you serve it for a few years and then leave it, you will lose your mental capacity and the attractiveness of your heart. Therefore the scripture says, "It is better for a virgin not to marry, unless she undertakes to become a mother, to bear children." And you must observe this law. Many accept every new teaching, that is, they want to become pregnant. If you do not accept this teaching, you will accept the various teachings of society. You cannot avoid it. Society will force you out of your passive position. It acts like mothers and fathers with their daughters. Get married. How long will you wait? Today or tomorrow, they tell her this. And finally the girl gets tired, and she makes a hasty choice. The religious, spiritual and social ideas that we have adopted should bring into our lives elements that can expand our consciousness, strengthen our will, purify our heart, and enlighten our mind. Everyone should carry these qualities within themselves. And in developing these modern ideas, 2 factors are of great importance. They are our brain system and our sympathetic system. The brain system is a dynamo, an accumulator of electricity. The sympathetic nervous system regulates, accumulates magnetism. Those who are highly intelligent and become neurasthenic often feel crawling on their legs, on their spine. These are molecules of electricity. In some, this movement of electricity is expressed in pinches. They are small explosions of this electrical energy. When electricity prevails and has supremacy in the organism, a person becomes exhausted, becomes dry. His thoughts and desires create through electricity that internal dryness, which gradually begins to destroy the internal unity of the organism. This reverse process is changed and made useful by magnetism. For this purpose, the sympathetic nervous system serves as an accumulator of the living magnetic force, which comes from the living sun. As soon as the supremacy of its magnetic, in sick neurasthenics the following happens. They begin to feel that a pleasant warmth is pouring down on them from below. And so, in order for a person to be ready to perceive what is useful and good in life, These two currents must certainly be in harmony. They are also necessary for the perception of new ideas that come from the heavenly world. In the normal organism, electricity and magnetism, when they unite, form a pleasant warmth, and then a process of true life is noticeable. If there is no harmony in our brain above and in the stomach below, in the so-called solar node, we cannot be carriers of new ideas. Keep in mind that when I speak of electricity and magnetism, I do not understand it as physicists now know it. Electricity and magnetism have three states. Magnetism has a radiant state, and in this radiant state it is a carrier of heat. As soon as it passes into another, watery state, the heat is absorbed, sir. That is, in magnetism itself a certain reaction, a combination of forces occurs. The third state of magnetism is that which thickens matter. The inner attraction of magnetism serves for the thickening of matter, solidification. What does matter show us? You have a grain of wheat. Its outer shell is magnetism in a solid state. You must supply it with moisture, and, when it enters the stomach, turn it into a liquid state. And from the stomach the sympathetic nervous system absorbs it and sends it to the brain, where it turns into rays and manifests itself in right thinking. When a person has magnetism, he is predisposed to pleasant and healthy thinking. What I am telling you is still very general. The process that takes place in the organism, sir, that is, in the sympathetic nervous system, takes place in our subconscious, unconsciously. When the process is correct, we feel pleasantness. This is how the young feel. They feel development in life. The old, in whom the brain system prevails, feel a lack of magnetism. Consider this. The overcoming influence of electricity is conditioned by our personal feelings. The latter often retain the electricity and make it explosive. Personal feelings make grenades and bombs. Small explosions are the dropping of bombs and everything else that is prepared in the human laboratory, filled with electricity, and these discharges can kill a person. If these bombs fall according to all the rules of art, a person will be finished. But we, spiritual people, are called to teach others not to fight. However, do not think that by preaching this teaching, no cannons, grenades and bombs, we have eradicated all evil from the world. No, it is in another place. That is why occult science comes to transform the human brain and the entire sympathetic nervous system, sir. That is, all its cells to become peace-loving and to understand that it is possible without war. I'm speaking to you on this subject because I notice that the people of the new trend, what they build on the one hand, destroy on the other. For example, I can undermine someone's faith if I say to him, "Do you think that what you believe is right?" It is enough to put this into his mind, or to say, "Do you believe this nonsense? What is your proof?" And he will say to himself, "Indeed I, a cultured person, should not believe this." First of all, what is culture? When you say culture, you must have a certain idea, what it consists of, what is positive in it. But, you will say, we have faith. What do you have faith in? When Moses once preached to the Jewish people, he had real experience, he told them, "Thus saith the Lord." He does, and everything that he does was not theory but experience. And Jesus, when he came, also had experience, because he said, "Thus hath the Father taught me, and by him I live." We will go forth to preach the new teaching. But what is this new teaching? In that God says, what? War must be excluded from human life, that it is the greatest crime in the world. No warfare, neither on the physical, nor on the astral, nor on the mental plane. And what does the Lord want from you? Work, work, and not warfare. Positively, he wants work today. And what does this work consist of? To be bearers of his love. But not as you have understood it up to now. As you understand it now, it is a force that will make you into a pastrami. Now I will explain my thought to you. What exactly will it do to you on the pastrami? Let's make an analogy by observing nature. I translate love into warmth. Heat alone does not help to maintain moisture in the earth, and all plants wither in it. Therefore, when there is heat, there must be other elements that can retain some moisture, and the heat, in turn, must turn this moisture into rain. That is, it must simultaneously carry moisture within itself. If heat comes without moisture, it is dangerous. Love comes as energy from the spiritual world. What element should it bring with it? Meekness and humility. You cannot show love in life if you do not have meekness and humility. What does Christ say? "Come to me, for I am meek and humble." Why at me? Because he is meek and humble. When I say to be meek and humble, keep in mind that I am not saying to be weak. In my opinion, the meek is the strongest, the smartest, and the best person. This is what I mean by the word meekness. It is a fortress in which a person is so safe that the enemy can throw all his bombs and shrapnel and still do him no harm. It is armor. He who has true meekness can be bombarded from afar by his enemy as much as he wants. Even if he manages to get close to him, the meek will press his meekness button, and then the enemy's rage will pass, and he will say, "You are a meek man." Do not deceive yourself that you are meek. If you are still quarreling, you are not meek. If out of 100 people only 10 made an exception regarding meekness, we have correct science. But the current situation is the opposite. Out of 100 people, there are barely 10 meek. Meekness and humility are two factors, two conditions under which love manifests itself. They are similar to air and moisture, which help the earth to grow all the embryos. Speaking to you on this subject, I want us to begin with an experiment. To put meekness and humility into action, to form a wave of them, and thus eliminate as much as possible the disharmony that exists in the world. You can pray 10 times a day. You can repent 100 times. It will not save you if this disharmony exists in you. When the bottle is cracked, you can fill it as much as you like. The water will not remain in it. The bottle into which water is poured must be strong. The Bulgarians, when a pitcher cracks, assume that it is covered with wax. But this covering is not permanent. The water can leak out again. And what are these cracks caused by? From the opposing actions of the aforementioned forces at a given moment. When a certain explosion occurs, the ignition does not occur in an ordinary way. Energy is collected, and since it cannot be properly combined, an explosion occurs. For example, if in the back of your head there is collected energy of electricity and magnetism, which urges you to manifest, and if people from all over begin to surround you and prevent you from using it, there will certainly be an explosion. If people stop you in a certain action, you begin to get angry and shout. This is not the way to work. I have told you before that you must preserve your energy. Look at the military. They usually try to preserve their power. They try to find the enemy and, by measuring, adjust the cannons so that the shrapnel falls exactly on the target. The energy that you now possess was created over a period of many thousands of years. Do not think that this organism and this energy that you have were created immediately. It took at least 100 to 200,000 years to create them. There are no banks in nature from which you can borrow. The spiritual world does not lend. It may give you a somony, enough to sustain your life, but living at the expense of nature, without working, is not such a thing. Everything in it is precisely measured. There is no excess or surplus, because any excess, if excessive, brings certain influences. If you have more matter in you than you need, you will get sick. If your muscles become stronger than necessary, if your nervous system develops more than it should, a painful condition will certainly come. Nature gives and takes, makes an exchange, but every day it also makes an accurate balance. You must adhere to this rule too. A good idea arises in you, and you begin to serve God, but in the evening you come home and say to yourself, "It's not worth the effort." This is how you ruin yourself. With every hesitation you forget. End the day with a deficit. Your coffers are in deficit. From now on, you must begin to study the conditions under which your brain system and your sympathetic nervous system develop, and every evening you must give yourself an account. You have some resentment towards someone who has offended you or done you some harm, you say, "I will let this person know." Let us assume that you can let him know. Take away his wealth, impoverish him, or destroy him. What will you personally gain from this? Tomorrow another will have something against you, and he will rob or destroy you. Here is mutual self-destruction. Always keep in mind that the divine spirit lives in every person. Only, in some people it lives in the subconscious, in others in the conscious, in still others in the superconscious. Those in whom the spirit lives in the subconscious feel it as an impulse to do something good. Those in whom it lives in the conscious say to themselves, "I think this is good and I must do it," and do it. Those in whom the spirit lives in the superconscious say, "This is divine and my destiny is to sacrifice even my life for it." Therefore, those in whom the spirit lives in the superconscious sacrifice themselves. Those in whom it lives in the conscious strive. So, the spirit can be as an impulse in the subconscious, as thinking in the conscious, and as an already determined striving for self-sacrifice in the superconscious. I am using modern scientific terms, and you can translate them however you want. I am not talking about abstract ideas, so I want them to be well received and applied by you. And we will put them to a corresponding experience, the experience of the superconscious, the experience of the conscious, the experience of the subconscious. If someone were to ask you, "What is your experience? What do you know about God or about Christ?" you would say, "I feel," that is your subconscious, or at most you could say, "I think," that is your conscious. However, when it comes to self-sacrifice, you would say, "I have not yet grown up to that point." But the meaning of life is only in the tying and ripening of the fruit. when an idea tying fruit in the superconscious. The conditions in which we live are not exceptional. These are new phases in human development. Some of the present race will pass from the subconscious to the conscious, others from the conscious to the self-conscious, and still others from the conscious to the superconscious. The trouble is precisely that you are afraid to make the attempt, and I can determine what fear at times overwhelms you, what doubts penetrate your soul. The teaching that you are following is strictly mathematically determined. There are no exceptions in it, and there should be no doubts in you. If you doubt God for a minute, your past will immediately come before you, your whole life in pictures, a whole hell. You will experience great suffering. If you believe in God, your future bright life will come. You will say, I will remain of a different opinion. In this school and on this path, there are no different opinions. You will have to go either to the left or to the right. You cannot be neutral. Precisely, in order to be able to become acquainted with the spiritual world, I will now define this. You need the electricity and magnetism of the superconsciousness. And if you want to develop your self-consciousness, you need the electricity and magnetism of consciousness. And how will you know that you have them? When dew falls in nature in summer, all the dust and soot that have risen and are flying through the air fall to the ground, and the atmosphere is purified. So too we, when we are full of this magnetism and this electricity, of which I spoke to you, quickly forgive. To the one who cannot forgive, I say to him, you have very little magnetism and electricity. And the words of Christ, unless you are born of spirit and water, I translate this way, the word water with the word magnetism, and spirit, this is movement, electricity of the superconsciousness. It is these two elements, Christ wants to say, that if they do not enter you, you cannot have life, because they are the most important elements. Now we will go on to translate the words meekness and humility. You have this magnetism within you, but you will have to learn the method of transforming this force from one state to another. The stomach transforms solid food into liquid, the lungs forward it to the brain, and the brain, which is the organ of dynamic energy, transforms this matter into electricity and sends it anew throughout the organism. Right thinking and feeling consists in this, transforming the things that are inside you into electricity. Here is a great and profound science. And if you know this transformation, your words will have power and weight. And you cannot do this if you do not have electricity and magnetism. You must be filled with living electrical and magnetic energy. And then, when you speak to someone, you will find in him suitable soil for sowing. In this way, your life will become more bearable and more pleasant. Do not think that you have to change your life in a different direction. No, you will only separate from yourself all the bad sediments, and then your home and personal life will take a right direction. For example, if you could inspire modern society to exclude lying from its environment, or, if people lie, to lie at least 10%, this would be a great progress, and now 90% lie. I will give an example of a religious person. 18 years ago I asked a shoemaker, an evangelist, who often goes to church, "Can you make me some shoes?" He answered me, "I have very strong shoes for you." After I took them and wore them for a month, they cracked and tore. When I told him this, he said to me, "How should I know?" The man was simply trying to sell his goods. But with those shoes that he sold to me and others, of course, he ruined his entire reputation. When you say you are going to make a promise, stop and think beforehand whether you can keep it, and don't promise too much. But when you promise, stick to your word. Even if the earth turns upside down, say you are going to follow a doctrine, follow it to the end. And now, in the way you are acting, the new doctrine cannot take root in the world. But let us return to this magnetism that is necessary, and that you wonder how to obtain. I will give you the following example. If a piece of iron asks you, "What shall I do to obtain heat and light?" what will you answer? There is a method. What is it? The blacksmith will push you over there, to that hearth, blow with his bellows, a fire will be kindled, and you will obtain the heat and light that whatever you wish. I anticipate your thought and your question. Where and how can we get the heat and light? Who want to shine like iron? As the energy passes through that wire, you see how the lamp shines. The divine current must also pass through you. And in the electric sparks there is consciousness. They rejoice in what they do and say, "We are content to shine for you." And the hearth is your heart. Every idea that you want to put into the world, you will first have to place it on the hearth of your heart and set the blower in action to ignite the coals. What are the coals that you have to put on the hearth? The air that is needed for combustion is your thoughts. They form the process of combustion, and the coals. They are called feelings. You will put your thoughts and feelings on the hearth, and, like a wise blacksmith, you will take the iron out of the embers with your tongs, look at it to see if it has reddened. If not, put it back into the embers. Do this several times until the iron becomes bright. Thus, when you want to send an idea into the world, you will have to heat it up in your hearth. By heating an idea with divine energy, it does not lose, but gains. It acquires the properties of radium. Once it has come out of your heart, it will constantly illuminate for 30,000 years. And it is no small thing to send an idea into the world, to live for 30,000 years. That is quite a long life. How long do your current ideas live? They have a very short life. The degeneration of the world is due to the fact that in the air and in you there are many ideas, thoughts, and desires from which you must cleanse yourselves. When Christ said, "You are whitewashed cemeteries," he was not far from the truth. One thought comes to you, then another, desires come to you, and you become a graveyard of dead thoughts and desires, among which you will find here and there, and very rarely, a truly living person. Christ, who is now coming to earth, wants to resurrect all the lofty thoughts and desires. They exist. They are only waiting for the moment of resurrection, and the scripture says, "And their works will follow them." You must make room for this great divine wave of revival that is coming. You must open yourself so that it may pass through you. If you do not open yourself now, then you may open yourself as much as you like, but it will be too late and useless. You must prepare yourself because an important and convenient moment has come in your life, such as you have never had, so that this divine wave that comes from above and has drawn near may pass through you. If your mind and your heart are ready, if you have electricity and magnetism, sirs, the materials with which to work, this wave will lift you up with this movement in the world, and you will find the meaning of life. Then those thoughts and desires of thousands of years that have disappeared from your memory will immediately be restored. When they are restored, you will be like that American who, together with his beloved, went somewhere to spend his honeymoon, and when the train in which he was traveling collided with another coming towards him, the groom went crazy. They put him in a madhouse, where he stayed for 16 years. At one time he escaped from there, got on another train. There was a new collision with this train, and his mind was adjusted. And with you, there will be such a second collision, which will adjust your mind. But only the one of you who manages to get on the second train will be happy. Do not be afraid of catastrophes. What could be better than this? Your mind will adjust, and you will understand the meaning of life. I want you to separate 2 by 2, between whom there is harmony. You can try at least 2 by 2, but if one is dry, the other must be fat. 2 dry ones should not gather in one place. A merchant who has capital is fat, and the one who has no money is dry and smart. But the merchant, in order to succeed, says to the dry one, "I am fat, rich, you are dry, smart, you will come to work with my capital." And it is the same with the soil. It must be fat, because otherwise people do not plant. That is, you will choose. The one who has capital, the fat one, will gather with the one who has brains, the one who has more electricity with another who has more magnetism. You will thus form a reasonable chain to see what will come of it. Then we will proceed to those small experiments that I told you about. First of all, you will have to change a certain state of yours, in case of great anxiety, not to stop and become agitated, but to be able to transform your feelings and thoughts in such a way that you can use all your energy for good. You will meet nervous people. You must know how to process and use their energy for useful work. Of course, by taking the superfluous, unnecessary from them, not to pick them up. Everyone is looking for good people, good society, good teachers, good priests, but there are very few of them. People of the new society must understand the laws that they teach, to process the old and bad materials as nature processes them. In this way you will give a new impetus to modern society, and in this urge Christ will manifest himself. I will stop here and continue on this in a second discourse given to the students of the Occult School of the Universal White Brotherhood, Thursday, January 22nd, 1920.